Oh, hi there. Forrest Griffin here, and I need you to do me a huge favor. I need you to go to YouTube, and I need you to check out Kiiyon Kimura. And yes, I said that correctly because I just got off his page. He has got all kinds of great content on there. Debates over who the greatest fighters were, how good they were, all kinds of legends like myself. No, just kidding. Like Randy Couture, Frank Mir, all kinds of legends. Brock Lesnar, if you want to go there. I don't know. It's debatable. Check out Kiiyon Kimura's YouTube channel and know for yourself. Find out for yourself. You know what I meant. Check the channel out.
Forrest Griffin is a big reason the UFC is so huge today. His monumental fight at the Ultimate Fighter finale rejuvenated life into the promotion that was so close to folding. But even after that, he had a career filled with some amazing moments, with one of them being a win for the championship belt. But his career had its lows as well. So how good was Forrest Griffin actually? Hey guys, it's Kiiyon, and today we're gonna talk about Forrest Griffin. I feel like I should start this video with Once Upon a Time because Forrest truly had a storybook career. And with so many of you recommending to do a video on him, it's understandable because his story is one that many would root for. And as always, shout out to the undisputed members of my Patreon. You guys motivate me so much to continue to push out content. So thank you as always. If you want to support me on Patreon, the link is in the description or on my new website, KiiyonKimura.com. Now let's get to the video. Forrest Griffin began his MMA career in October of 2001 at heavyweight. His opponent was former UFC super fight champion Dan Severn. And at this point in his career, Severn had a record of 47, 6-4. Which is possibly the craziest debut I've ever seen in MMA. In this fight, Forrest was really hesitant in throwing his punches, which gave Dan the opportunity to take the fight to the ground where he maintained top control for most of the fight. All Griffin was able to do was throw insults to Severn, such as telling him he looks like an overweight Tom Selleck. Regardless, Dan still took home the unanimous decision. After this loss, Forrest racked up 3 wins in a row on the local circuit before fighting UFC veteran Jeff Monson. In the first, Monson took Forrest down and controlled him for most of the round, but when it got stood up, Griffin began landing some heavy shots. In the second, Jeff took the fight down again and controlled Forrest there for the remainder of the round. In the third, Monson secured another takedown but ate heavy shots before he secured it. Even on the ground, Griffin was staying busy off his back by connecting with punches. In the fourth, Forrest landed uppercuts before connecting with a knee that dropped Jeff. He controlled Jeff on the ground for most of the round. Monson landed an illegal upkick, and when the fight was stood up, he was exhausted. Griffin ended the fight with ground and pound and went on to win the unanimous decision. He would go on to win another fight on the local circuit before fighting Steve Sage in December of 2002. Forrest started aggressive by connecting with some heavy knees. He then took the fight down and almost took Sage's back, but he was able to mount and trap Steve's arm in the process. This led to punches from Griffin without any of them being defended, leading to another win. Forrest picked up another win in Brazil before fighting Chael Sonnen in September of 2003. This would also mark his light heavyweight debut. Sonnen was a smaller fighter but immediately secured the takedown. After being controlled on the ground for a few minutes, Griffin secured the triangle choke that forced Chael to tap. His next fight was against UFC veteran Jeremy Horn. Like many of his other fights, Forrest was the aggressor early with his fast hands and knees. This led to him taking the fight to the ground where he took Horn's back. But during the scramble, Jeremy reversed the position and was now on top controlling Griffin. But Forrest got up and connected with a combo that dropped Horn and was on top once again. But then Jeremy reversed the position once more and you get the grasp of how close these guys were matched on the ground. All this action was slowing down Griffin as by the start of round 2, Horn was connecting with more shots and was able to secure the takedown. The two would scramble a lot in this round, but ultimately, Jeremy was the aggressor now. And when the fight got back up, he connected with a beautiful high kick that sent Griffin down to the mat, handing him his second pro loss. But a month later, Forrest came back and fought Edson Paredão in Brazil at heavyweight. After securing a takedown early, the fight got back up and Griffin connected with a right hand that knocked Edson out cold. The fight lasted for 64 seconds. But after this fight, Forrest quit his MMA career to take a job at a sheriff's department. And that's when UFC president Dana White came in. The promotion in 2004 was struggling financially and was on the brink of folding. Dana White and the Fertittas needed something to bring more popularity to the UFC. So that's when they came up with the idea to have a reality show of fighters who live in one house and participate in both challenges and fights, with the winner of the show receiving a 6-figure UFC contract. Dana was off to look for both light heavyweights and middleweights to compete in the first season. And that's when Forrest got the call to quit his job and join the show, a decision he was reluctant on making initially, but ultimately decided to go for it and was the 5th pick by coach Chuck Liddell. And he had an incredible run in the house by defeating Alex Schunauer and Sam Hoger by strikes on the ground, which meant he would be advancing to the Ultimate Fighter finale on April 9th, 2005, where he fought Stephan Bonnar. The event was the first non-pay-per-view bout for the promotion as it was broadcasted live on Spike TV. The two were feeling each other out early before the action really began to pick up and the two began to slug it out. Forrest attempted a takedown only to be reversed, but the fight got back up and they continued to stand face to face and throw shots at each other. Griffin secured another takedown and almost secured an armbar before the end of the first. In the second, Forrest got cut on the nose by a punch before securing the takedown, but the fight would be stood up after the cut was checked up on. The two continued to trade shots without covering up. They also threw so many knees at each other as well. With all this action, it was unbelievable that neither of them went down. The war continued through the third round, and by the end, it was really close. But I do think the takedowns were in Griffin's favor as he won the unanimous decision and the UFC contract. So did Bonner and a whole bunch of other guys on this season. But the match itself was so good and is still recognized today as the fight that saved the UFC. After this fight, Forrest picked up 2 first-round wins when he finished Bill Mahood by rear naked choke and Elvis Sinosik by knockout. In April of 2006, Griffin fought former UFC light heavyweight champion Tito Ortiz. Tito connected with the left early before taking the fight down and landing ground and pound for the remainder of the round. But in the second, Forrest denied all takedowns from Ortiz and began picking him apart on the feet. And that momentum continued in the third when Tito slowed down significantly and Griffin still looked fresh. But he continued to connect with his shots before being taken down by Tito and receiving ground and pound shots from the top. But Forrest managed to get up before the end of the round where he got in a couple more shots. The fight was so close, but Tito ended up winning the split decision, which of course was controversial. At UFC 62, Griffin fought Stephan Bonner for a second time. But it wasn't the same war as the first fight, as Griffin was able to win all 3 rounds by dominating most of the stand-up exchanges. He won the unanimous decision and went on to fight Keith Jardine. Forrest was the favorite in this fight, but Keith managed to rock him with a combo and finish him on the ground before the end of the first round. This was a devastating loss for Griffin, who was not shy to show how emotional he was. Regardless, he bounced back at UFC 72 against Hector Ramirez, where he won the fight by controlling the stand-up. He recorded 38 leg kicks in the 15-minute bout, which was a UFC record at the time. In September of 2007, Griffin fought former Pride Middleweight Grand Prix winner Shogun Rua. Shogun was 16-2 going into the fight and was regarded as one of the best light heavyweights in the world. And even though Shogun connected early with shots and secured a takedown, so did Griffin, and after the back and forth, Forrest secured the rear naked choke that shocked the MMA world. It was the upset of the year. This win earned him #1 contendership and the opportunity to coach on The Ultimate Fighter opposite of light heavyweight champion Rampage Jackson. After coaching their season, the two fought at UFC 86. Rampage was the favorite in this fight, and he looked to be so when he rocked Griffin early with an uppercut that knocked him down. But Forrest came back in the second with leg kicks to the knee of Rampage that really swayed the momentum in the fight. He finished the round by mounting Rampage and the fight was off to a close start. The rest of the fight saw both men finding success on the feet and Griffin almost being powerbombed. The narrative seemed to be favoring Forrest with his leg kicks as they definitely affected Rampage in this fight. After 5 rounds, the fight was really close, but Forrest Griffin won the unanimous decision to become the UFC light heavyweight champion. His first title defense was at UFC 92 against the undefeated Rashad Evans. Throughout this fight, Griffin was the aggressor in the stand-up as he was throwing more volume and connecting with some nice combos. In comparison to Rashad, who was feeling out Forrest on the feet and looking for the big right hand. Regardless, Forrest was definitely winning the fight. He threw a leg kick that got caught by Rashad, who immediately took him down and began to throw heavy ground and pound. Griffin was able to survive for a bit, but Evans continued to punish him with strikes before ref Steve Mazzagatti stepped in. Following this fight, Forrest fought UFC middleweight champion Anderson Silva, who moved up to 205 for this matchup. Anderson was regarded as an MMA god at this point, and this performance truly showcased that. Griffin was unable to land anything significant in this fight as Silva was way too fast and was able to dodge any attack that came his way. At the same time, he was taunting Forrest and connecting with shots of his own. Silva knocked down Griffin twice before landing a counterpunch that put down Forrest, who wanted no more. His next fight was a rematch against Tito Ortiz at UFC 106. Like the first one, it was close. Tito found success with his wrestling as he was able to secure takedowns and land ground and pound that cut Griffin early. But Forrest was the aggressor on the feet as he was able to connect with combos and kicks and deny most of Ortiz's takedowns in the third. He ended up winning the split decision. Griffin was then out for a year due to a reoccurring shoulder injury before he came back to fight former UFC middleweight champion Rich Franklin. Forrest used his size advantage to win the exchanges on the feet and even take the fight down. He went on to win the unanimous decision. At UFC 134 in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, Griffin fought Shogun Rua for a second time. The fight ended in less than 2 minutes after Shogun connected with a combo that dropped Forrest, and he immediately rushed in with heavy ground and pound that forced ref Mark Goddard to stop the fight. It was later revealed that Griffin was told prior to the fight that his wife was going into labor 9 days earlier than expected. He came back almost a year later at UFC 148 to fight Tito Ortiz for a third time. Tito was able to knock down Forrest twice in this fight, as well as secure a couple of takedowns. But like the other fights, Griffin was the overall aggressor on the feet and ultimately won the unanimous decision. A fight that was also his last due to injuries that forced Griffin to officially retire on May 26, 2013. So after going 19-7 in a career that saw him win the Ultimate Fighter and the UFC Light Heavyweight Championship, how good was Forrest Griffin actually? actually. So after winning the first ever Ultimate Fighter, which was one that saved the promotion, you would think that was going to be the pinnacle of Griffin's career, like it was with many of the fighters on that season. But he truly had a career that you would expect from an Ultimate Fighter winner. It was one that had many lows, but he stuck around for the highs, and when they came around, they were monumental. In fact, he was one of those fighters who accepted losses better than most. After the Dan Severn win, he expressed how much fun he had regardless of the loss. Even when he lost to Jardine, he was devastated but gave credit to Keith, who did what he wanted to do, and now it was time to move on. I would even unofficially write off that second loss to Shogun because he received huge news prior to that bout that must have changed his entire mindset. But that Anderson Silva loss was definitely one he earned, and even that defeat is one he famously brings up all the time and pokes fun at. He seriously has some tough skin, but he was even tougher in the cage where his hands were fast, and even though he didn't have one-punch knockout power, he threw with a lot of volume, and his superb cardio definitely helped him in that. And he was a pretty tall light heavyweight with a long reach, so he used that to his advantage by keeping the distance with his hands and connecting with kicks, especially the leg kicks, which was a huge part of his offense. Even though he was on Team Liddell for the show, he ended up training with Randy Couture afterwards, and I think Randy really contributed to Griffin's clinch game, as Forrest was constantly grabbing a hold of his opponents and engaging in dirty boxing. He didn't have the best takedown defense, but when on the ground, his jiu-jitsu was quite impressive. His size definitely factored into that, as he did well in maintaining top control, and he was also dangerous off his back where he was always looking for the submission. I mean, submitting a prime Shogun Hua tells you a lot on how good he is when the fight goes down. But in my opinion, Forrest wasn't the best in any aspect of MMA. He wasn't known as a world-class striker or grappler, but he was still pretty good in both and tied it all together with his heart, toughness, and resilience. Overall, he was a really good fighter, just not the best. I would consider him to be in the top 15 of greatest light heavyweights of all time, but his legacy won't be remembered for his skills as a fighter. His career is like the script of a movie, and I wouldn't be surprised if one based on his life and career was made one day. He saved the company, became a champion, and even ended his career on a win. And on top of this storybook career, everyone loves Forrest Griffin. I've never heard anyone share or express dislike for the guy during his MMA career, or even after it, where he became the vice president of athlete development at the UFC Performance Institute. Forrest Griffin is widely respected in the MMA community as if he was still a UFC champion today, because he built a reputation as one, long before he even won the belt. My name is Kiiyon, and this was my take on how good Forrest Griffin actually was. Do you agree, disagree, or have something else to add? Please put it in the comments down below, because I love to read it. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. But that's all I have for now, so I'll see you on my next one.